think we've got everything cool. Alrighty. It was a bit of a glitch earlier. I realized that when I set up the feed last night, I set it for 1 a.m. for reasons, and so you probably got reports saying, hey, it's going to go live at 1 a.m., which I was asleep. And then it also goofed up the chat thing. So hopefully that's all fixed now. I reset it for 9 and everything seems to be cool. People are chatting. It's great. I also realized about 30 seconds before going live that for some reason the microphone was coming from my camera over there and not the microphone that I have set here. Just every once in a while, the software decides, you know what, we're going to just change the microphone for reasons. So that's fun. And so... so I fixed it, so hopefully it'll sound better. I don't know if it was like this 2 weeks ago. I remember seeing somebody in the chat saying it seems quiet, which maybe would be the case if it was the microphone way the heck over there. Anyway, so otherwise, so far so good. And I hope those of you out there are having a good morning / evening, afternoon, whatever you got going on. I'm seeing a good morning from Texas. I am seeing sunny Vietnam. Nice. Gothenburg, we've got Peoria, Illinois, we've got Winnipeg, it's a sunny evening in Russia. Good morning, good afternoon from Portugal, that's fun. Good morning everyone from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Here for the booty show. Well, it's not exactly going to be that kind of booty. I mean, unless you're thinking about stuff that I brought back from Gen Con, then it'll be exactly that type of booty. Belgium, Woodbury, New Jersey, Northern Arizona, Poland, Belgium, Norwich. I'm probably mispronouncing that one. Good morning from Irvine, California. I was pretty confused last night. Yeah, Morning from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wake and Bake in Seattle, Massachusetts, Manchester, rainy Ireland. It's damp here and cloudy, but it's not currently raining, so I got that going for me. Columbus, Ohio. I was just there in June. What else have we got? Louisville, Kentucky, East Sussex. Another hello from Texas. Borneo, I'm on Delaware. Delaware and the beach. There you go. Any clone troopers yet? No, I did not pick up any of the clone troopers at Gen Con. I did pick up some other stuff at Gen Con that's Star Wars related. Let's see here. Finland, Greencastle, Matthew Sears, Moderator Matt is in the house. Too much talk of booty might get you demonetized like the stripping video. It's true. It's true. Chile, Calgary. Good morning from South Jersey. Good morning. Good day from Stockholm. First time I managed to catch up live. Thanks for all the good work, sir. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. 52 miniatures. Norwich. But it's okay. Well, I was close. See, it's one of those things where, like, some of those places, you read it, and you're like, if you use all the letters, they go, that's not how it's pronounced. And we skip a bunch of them, but yeah. Let me see here. What else have we got? Calgary. Morning from Des Moines, Iowa. Mr. Mendeleev asks, when did this hello from beginning habit thing start? A couple of years ago, honestly. It was, I don't know exactly. It just sort of did, and I think it's fun. Did you get in on a Battletech Alpha Strike demo? I did not. It was... The issue with Gen Con, to some degree, is that I find it sometimes difficult to just sit down and get a demo. Like, if you're in someone's booth and they've got a big enough booth where they can have some tables and stuff like that, different story altogether. But if you're trying to plan for a demo, then you have to go through a bunch of stuff, or you have to have some generic tickets, or you have to have pre-signed up. And so, because of my schedule at the convention, I rarely ever pre-sign up for gaming events. Actually, I didn't pre-sign up for anything this year. I had to run 3 seminars, so there was that. I had pre-signed up, but otherwise I didn't really have the time to be able to do that. So, but I did hang around a little bit in the Battletech area for a while. Talked to Mac the Maker for quite some time. He's moving to Arizona. So yeah, let me see what else we got here. Trying to get out of bed in LA, morning from Reno, Nevada. Hello from Chicago. Great seeing you and Matt at Potbellies. Hope you enjoyed Gen Con. It was my first, and I think I will just stick with Adepticon. Gen Con is it's a lot of work, and if you live in Chicago and you like miniature games, you're so close to Adepticon that just seems easier and makes sense. I feel like I'm not close enough to the. I'm gonna scooch a little bit there. There we go. It's a little bit better. Yeah, we did have a little mini meetup kind of on Saturday night. Friday night. Sorry, Friday night at Potbellies, and that was fun. Unfortunately, they close at 9 or something on Saturdays, I guess. So we started a little bit late, and then they closed, and then we just kind of loitered for quite some time. And then eventually ended up back at the beer garden area, which I ended up at strangely a lot this particular Gen Con. What else have we got here? Maryland, Lincolnshire, Ireland, upstate South Carolina. Hello from Florida. I heard the Battletech simulator was best played intoxicated. I don't know, because if things got a little out of control, you'd be sort of stuck in this pod with nowhere to go. So that's not a lot of fun. I haven't played on the Battletech simulators in a while, probably 3 or 4 years at least. Hey Adam, I stripped my first miniature yesterday and I used LA's Totally Awesome Measure recommendation. It worked well. Totally awesome. See, hence, as it says on the bottle. Yeah, I haven't had to strip any models recently, but man, that stuff does work. I've got my wife and I have a good friend who used that same stuff to clean the walls of her kitchen before painting the kitchen, and then she evidently didn't rinse it off as well as she would have hoped, and then she found it nearly impossible to paint her kitchen because she would paint it and then the paint would like flake off, and yeah, so that stuff's serious, as it turns out. So yeah. Nicholas asks, did you get to try Infinity? If you demoed it at their booth, you got a free mini. No, I've tried Infinity, oh gosh, at least a couple of times. I want to say the last time I tried Infinity, actually Sam, our friend the painter Sam, he gave me a demo, and like a teaching game. So yeah, I did not play it this time at Adepticon, or sorry, Gen Con. That's where I was. Adam, what do you think about the new Necromunda Palanite Enforcers? I think the models look really cool. I was trying to think if I was going to pick up a box just because I could use them for other stuff. I still might, but they're a little... For the stuff that I want, they're a little normal looking. You know what I mean? Like I've picked up most of the rest of the Necromunda box sets, like not Ashers and Goliaths. I don't, because I already had them anyway in the starter box. But I've picked up like Cawdor and Vansar and the other ones, Orlok and that kind of stuff. Just because I'm like, these are perfect for kit bashing. I can grab this part from this and this part from that and all that kind of junk. So yeah, but I haven't picked up the Enforcers yet. I think they just came out yesterday, actually, now that I come to think of it. So, hey from Sydney, Australia. Durrell Dorset, UK. Getting ready to rattle can some terrain here in CA. Today is not a good rattle can day here because it is humid. It is, I think, 122% humidity. So that's fun. Gaddis Gaming says, we missed you guys. Yeah, it's funny because there are people that I bump into like 6 or 7 times during the convention, and then there are other people who were there that I totally miss. It happens sort of frequently. The one person that I bumped into over and over again, he believes that it has something to do with quantum entanglement, and that's, I don't even frankly know exactly what that means, but I'm going to go with it. So yeah. Aaron Thomas says, I missed a beer garden. Oh yeah, like where all the food trucks are. That's all the beer garden there. It's maybe not technically the term that it's called, but it's what term that we've been calling it. Let me see here. Useful G. Hey, how you doing? Hello, everyone. Long time no see. Hey, Adam. Who is your favorite army in Star Wars? That's a good question. So, as of sometime this week, Thursday? Wednesday? I don't know, somewhere in there. Anyway, I've now got 4 full squads of stormtroopers completely finished, even matte varnished, like just done, like absolutely done. And last night I finished, except for varnish, a unit of scout troopers, which I've painted kind of a deserty color because all my stuff is going to be desert oriented, kind of a Tatooine look. I've got death troopers, a squad of 6 of those guys. They are probably 80% done, maybe 70. And then I got to do Krennic, and then I need to do a unit of snow troopers, and then I think I have enough for an 800-point force because I've already got Veers done, and like I said, those 4 units of stormtroopers. So I do kind of like the Empire, but I haven't started painting my rebels yet, so I don't know. I can tell you right now, like, I don't see myself hopping into the, even though the stuff looks great, I don't see myself hopping into the new Clone Wars stuff right away. If I had to pick between Clone Wars or Clone Troopers and droids, I'd probably go Clone Troopers. I kind of like droids, but they look real fiddly to put together and delicate. So I might just go with. Plus, you can do a little bit more with Clone Troopers. Like on my Stormtroopers, I painted on this shoulder, which is their left shoulder. I painted them. I just painted a single color on each squad so I could differentiate them. There's red squad, blue squad, green squad, and gold squad / yellow squad. I don't want to call them yellow squad. It seems like they'll run away. But yeah. So, but that's kind of not canon per se. I mean, you know, in the movies they never really did that too much, but in some of the books and stuff like that, you could see a little bit of that, comics and whatnot. But in the Clone Troopers, like, they did that a lot. They was constantly like modifying their armor to differentiate themselves, which maybe has something to do with the fact that they're all clones and they want to think that they're different or whatever. It's anyway. So my point is that I could see myself going with Clone Troopers maybe just because you could kind of modify them a little bit more. Although they did that a little bit on the droids too. You saw droids that had different color markings and things like that. I just think it would be way harder on droids because they're so skinny. So anyway. Humidity can go over 100%. No, that was me being not funny. So yeah. Let's see here. Matthew Sears says that he was running games in the JW Marriott all weekend, and you kind of had to seek me out. Yes, you're right. I did eventually find you, but I had to go into a lot of rooms to find you. Moderator Matt was running his role-playing game stuff for Rec Age and Rec Age related things and stuff. So he was doing that like a lot. He was pretty much every day. He was running 2 or 3 sessions, I think. So that was he was a busy guy, but we still got together to hang out sometimes at night. So that was nice. David Turner says using masking tape to paint Imperial Knight insignia. Wish me luck. That good luck. Yeah, absolutely. Error Zero says, morning, Adam. I've been wanting to go to Gen Con. Any tips with dealing with the sheer number of people? Ooh, gosh. There are a lot. This year they said afterwards that it got to nearly 70,000 people, which right away on Thursday when the dealer hall opened, I didn't come in the main normal doors. So in the past, it used to be that if you had a press badge, you could go into the dealer hall an hour early. You could not buy anything. You would get kicked out if you bought anything. But you could talk to people and do some quickie interviews and stuff before all the cacophony. So this year, for reasons that no one quite understands, they just were like, nope, nobody gets to do that. Not even the VIGs, who pay a whole bunch of money to be very important gamers. They don't get to go in early anymore either, I guess, from what I've been told. So evidently the dealers didn't like it, or I don't know what. I didn't, it was probably 20 minutes after hall opens. Hall opens at 10 a.m. and I didn't come in. So the convention hall, the main, like, this is the dealer area, is this big long rectangle, maybe about the size of this window. I mean, you know, proportions of this window. It's obviously a lot larger than this window. But then down here, there's this weird sort of dangly bit that sticks down, which I just started referring to as the dangle. It's like there's this big, huge hall, and then there's just this part that kind of sticks down, and you can enter through that way as well from the gaming halls, where there's actual just gaming going on. So once they opened those doors, I came in that direction, and one of the first booths you see when you come in that area is Kingdom Death the Kingdom Death booth. And the Kingdom Death booth had a line that was 3,000 people long. Okay, again, I'm probably exaggerating, but it was a humongous line. And in that weird little dangly bit over there, it feels to me as if the walkways between booths are much narrower. So when I first entered the dealer hall on Thursday, it was like this. You're just like walking and you're just like shoulder to shoulder to people and trying to look at stuff and go, oh, I kind of want to look at that. I don't know we're going this way. All right. And so I was like, this is going to be no fun. There are so many people here. Well, once kind of got through that area, then it got better. I feel like in the big main portion of the dealer hall, the aisles are a little bit further apart, or the walkways are wider. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, man, it did seem like there was a lot more people there this year. So how do you deal with that? Well, probably try not to get there right at 10 a.m. if you want to get into the dealer hall. Give it an hour or so. Find spots not in the middle of an aisle to stop. Like if you do need to stop or whatever, kind of pull over and just kind of hang out. Maybe at the end of any of the rows, usually there's like wall, because it's the outer edge of that big giant room, and it is a humongous room. But just kind of hang there. There's a lot of people that just sort of hang back and just watch people and stuff like that. Those are probably my best pieces of advice that I could pull off. Sorry. Gaddis Gaming says, I'm going all in on Clone Wars Legion. We've talked about this, again, Mr. Gaddis. It's true. Yes, I know you're a big fan. Like I said, I do think that it would be interesting to see. Like, I could see myself maybe doing some clone stuff maybe down the road, but we'll see. Michael Strange says, thanks for all the Gen Con 19 pictures on Instagram. Yeah, I find at conventions Instagram works best for me. And just because, like, I was hoping to maybe try to get some video editing done this year, and I brought something to edit on and everything like that. And it's just so hard because there's so much to do. And it's just there's just not downtime where you're just sitting there going, well, I got a couple hours, I guess I'll edit. It's not a thing. Like if I was forced to, like if it was a thing like where I was expected, I had to do, like I had to put out 2 videos every day or something, where I was working for somebody else and stuff like that. Then you have to find the time, but then you miss doing all these other things that you might want to do. Like Thursday night, I was invited to a party put on by a podcast that's predominantly about board gaming, but the guys that run it are guys that like my show, and we've talked at a bunch of different conventions. They're super nice guys. It's a podcast called Rolling Dice Taking Names. And so they were having this party that like you had to get tickets for up ahead of time and everything like that. So Marty from Rolling Dice said, hey, you want to come? We'll put you on the list. And I was like, sure. So it was at the old Spaghetti Factory. And so hung out there and talked to people and stuff like that and had a good time. And then on Saturday night, I was invited to another podcast's party. And this is a podcast for board gaming as well called Secret Cabal, which is a kind of huge podcast. So the Secret Cabal podcast, Jamie, who's one of the main guys who runs that, is also a fan of the show. And so we've talked at other conventions. We first met actually for the first time in person actually at Origins back in June. And so, yeah, it was kind of great to be able to go to these kind of things, these events, and talk to people and kind of do that kind of stuff. But that's taking time away from editing, which is fine. I feel as if I was going to be making videos during, I would be taking away from trying to get more content. So while I was just basically taking pictures and putting stuff out on Instagram and things like that, I was also doing some shooting as well. I'm kind of working on this little mini documentary about dice that I want to do. I started thinking about it back during Origins. Honestly, if there's a convention that you can find at least that I can find some time to sit down and edit at, it would probably be Origins, because there was a lot of times in the night that were not, like, there was one night, like Saturday night, it rained a whole bunch and there was nothing to do, and so I just sort of sat in my hotel room during Origins. But yeah, anyway, so long story short, if you want to see what's going on when I go to conventions very frequently, check out Instagram. But a lot of that stuff also then ends up on Twitter as well, and I think also on Facebook. So it's, you can probably find it. Let me see. What else have we got here? I was talking for a very long time. My normal meetup for X-Wing is being disrupted because of scheduling conflicts. Another friend is going to show me Battletech. Any suggestions? Battletech has got a lot of paperwork to it. but if you like really crunchy kind of simulation style games, it's a lot of fun. Battletech was my first war game back in middle school. So yeah, it may not be to your liking necessarily, but if you do want something that's a little, it's definitely slower than X-Wing, but it's very, like I said, it's very crunchy. In X-Wing, you're like, oh, I've got 6 hit points and now I have 4, or whatever. Whereas, that ship. Whereas in Battletech, it's like, well, I've taken 3 damage to my left arm, so I mark off 3 little circles on my little thing, and and it's a lot more detailed that way. So, let's see here. So yeah, give that a try though, definitely. Where does Gen Con take place? Indianapolis, Indiana. Has been there since 2003. Previous to that, it used to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ashes to Ashes UK says, wow, can't believe I'm catching this live. Greetings from Maidstone. Well, we're glad to have you. Absolutely. What else have we got here? Legionnaire says, Kingdom Death is just too weird for me. I've not yet still played it. The models are amazing. I mean, it's just straight up. The models are amazing. I've still not yet played it. I've watched it kind of played from a distance. I do want to find a good battle report channel for it and kind of check some of that stuff out. It's a very different game. It's a very, I hate to call it a gateway game, like between board games and miniatures. It sort of is, but it's still like, it's got, movement and range and, that kind of stuff. And you're playing a gridded board and things like that. But there's still a lot of cards and it's got a lot of board game elements to it, which I think is why it's popular, honestly. So yeah. Ashes to Ashes asks, what are your thoughts on the new Kill Team starter set? I saw a picture of it. I'm glad that they're doing it. It's not the same terrain that everybody likes, sadly. It's the whatever the heck that more industrial stuff is called, Sector Mechanicus. I think that may be right. Why not? So it's not the stuff that came in the original box, but it is a new box and new models and stuff like, well, I don't know that they're new, but a new selection of models. And so that's cool. I'm glad. It'll be interesting to see what the price is on it. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing it. It's not a requirement. Again, like, people have said, well, how am I going to get into Kill Team if they stop making the starter? And I say, well, you just buy the book, and that's $40, and then you use terrain you've already got, or buy some terrain, or whatever. It's probably not going to be, I mean, the original starter was a very good deal. If you took all the stuff in there, added all up the prices, you got a pretty hefty discount. But, yeah, so you can get started into you can get started into Kill Team any way you want. But I'm glad that they're kind of making a new, starter box so that people can jump in on that too. Matthew Sears says, I spent only 90 minutes in the dealer hall. It was great. Spent $0 in there. That's true. He was Matt was mostly in the dealer hall to try to get free stuff. Now, that sounds bad, the way I say it like that. It's not like he's trying to get free stuff for himself. Matt is the kind of the main charity guy for a convention here in the Midwest called Dragonfall, which comes up in October. And Dragonfall is a mostly miniatures, but it's starting to kind of leak into some RPG and some other board game stuff, but mostly miniatures. It's a small little convention in Illinois, and Matt's main kind of volunteer gig for that is to get stuff for their door prizes or their raffles or whatever to raise money for the charity. So he and I were walking around for a little bit on Sunday, and he was talking to different companies about like getting them to send stuff. And he's been, from the pictures I've seen, he's been very good at it. He's gotten a lot of stuff. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, you're interested in miniatures, take a look at Dragonfall, and you might win some stuff because he's gotten a lot of stuff. So that's good. Let me see here. What else we got? I'm behind. I wish they would do a recording sweep of the dealer hall slow enough so you could see the booths. Oh, that would take hours. Literally hours. Back when I worked for Beasts of War, I remember one year they were like, hey, can you just go through and do a grid walk of the dealer hall so we can see the dealer hall? Like all the booths and stuff like that. And I was like, do know how many booths there are, right? I mean, like, it literally, just to walk by each one and say, well, this is a booth where they sell this and they've got that kind of stuff and whatever. Like, spending a minute at each booth would have taken probably, there's got to be 500 booths? I don't know. There's a lot. There is astounding. There were plenty of booths that I walked by on Sunday and I was like, when did this show up? I've walked through this dealer hall a lot, not seen it yet. Partially, and this is my own slight OCD kicking in, it's because it's a grid, right? Yeah, so it's just easy to go up and down, up and down, up and down. Except that every once in a while they'll put a big booth in the middle. So you're coming down this row, and then you hit this booth, and you're like, well, crap. And then you have to go around it. And then if you don't come back in the right... And then there's always some time where I walk past something and completely miss it. My beloved Fez manufacturers, Fezzorama, I had to pull out the website on my phone to try to figure out what the heck booth they were in. So I could not find them because they were kind of in the back and they were tilted in a way that every time I walked by I missed them. So I finally had to find the number and go look for it, and then I was able to get myself a Fez, which I can show you right here. This is my 5th Fez from them, and I feel as if they are particularly calling me out, which I'm fine with. I mean, as I said to a couple of friends, I mean, it's got an atom on it. You know, I'm not made out of stone. You know, I can't. You know, you've got to. I mean, seriously, it's got an atom on it. I had to buy it. This was like new at the convention. This was the first show that this new design was at. And I walked up and I'm like, well, there you go. That's what I need. Plus, I don't have a blue Fez. I have a gray Fez. I have 2 or 3 black Fezzes, a red Fez, and now wait. Because I had 4, this is my 5th. Yeah, I had a gray Fez. I have a gray Fez with the Elder sign on it, which is a Cthulhu thing. I've got 2 black Fezzes, one with Cthulhu on it, and one with Black Phillip on it, the goat. And then I have one it's a red one that's got a skull and crossbones, and I have a blue one with an atom. And even these are little, what do you call them? Little red rhinestones or whatever. So... And it's even got this sweet, I always upgrade and get the little skull pin that holds it so your tassel doesn't, freak out a lot. Don't want to mess up my hair. I mean, goodness. So, yeah, so that I picked that up right away on the first day because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss the size and stuff like that. One of the reasons I love buying Fezzes from them in general is because they make them for my giant head. Honestly, that's a 3X and they go up to 5X. If you're, I don't want to head shame anyone here, but honestly, if your head's big enough for 5X, you couldn't keep your head in luggage. You know what I mean? Like the guy who played Lurch in the Addams Family movies, not the TV show. He's probably long dead, but the guy who he's super crazy, super tall. I mean, I'm not saying he's crazy. I'm saying he's super crazy tall. And I saw him at Gen Con back in the day when it was still in Milwaukee. He was there signing autographs or whatever in a booth, and I walked past. He was also on Next Generation for a while. He was Deanna Troy's mother's manservant, or I don't know, something like that. Butler, whatever. Anyway, his head would have not fit in the overhead bin on an airplane. It was massive. It was huge. But he's also 7.5 feet tall or something like that. Anyway, they probably could still fit a Fez on that guy, which would have been awesome. That guy in a Fez would be spectacular. Anyway, I've gotten off track. I apologize. Let me see here. Hi, while you were at Gen Con, what really stood out to you and caught your attention? Well, that's a good question. I would say that... To be honest, there wasn't anything that really blew me away. I didn't see anything and go, wow. You know what I mean? There was a lot of small things, but there was not one big thing that really blew me away. The stuff that's really impressed me so far this year has come out at other conventions and things like that, and I can't... Yeah, but there was nothing really huge. I mean, there were some amazing-looking tables. There was a lot of... Just the spectacle of all the people and stuff, that's one thing, but yeah. There was no big, huge, game. The Dark Prince says, I'm excited about Marvel Crisis Protocol. Might get me into terrain building. I have no idea where to start, though. So, okay, so that game was announced at Gen Con. Made by a company called Atomic Mass Games, and it's going to be published by Asmodee. It was... announced during Fantasy Flight's in-flight big press event. It was in the Fantasy Flight booth. They were showing off demos and stuff like that. Here's the thing about that game. Number one is it's a bigger scale than normal. It's 40 millimeter, so everybody and everything is kind of larger. That's not a huge problem, but it is a little weird because the terrain is going to be maybe a little bit troublesome. And you're going to need a lot of it. Like a normal army-style game, you can have big open areas because it's a battlefield. But when you're fighting a super tiny skirmish game, especially when it's superheroes fighting supervillains or whatever, you generally need to have... Like all the demo stuff, if you watched on Instagram, the pictures I posted are all real small little demo tables that had lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of terrain. Someone did mention yesterday, I saw that the weird 40 millimeter scale actually translates to, I think, O scale in model trains. So the benefit in that situation is rather than having to wait for people to make buildings in that scale in the hobby industry, like, you know, your laser cut MDF and blah, 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 and all that stuff, instead you can just go to your train store and just buy a bunch of like modern buildings at an O scale and then boom, build yourself a cool, you know, train table or whatever for that. So that might be kind of cool. And if they push that and tell people to do that, that would be neat. But yeah, I mean, I didn't play the game. I had a guy from Fantasy Flight who was doing demos there in that booth explain kind of to me things about it. But yeah, I like the superhero movies just fine. I don't see myself painting those guys and doing it. I don't know. We'll see. It's supposed to come out fourth quarter, I think, of this year. So it's still supposed to come out this year. But it'll be interesting. Let me see. What are we doing here? Ba-doo. I'm backing up again. Aaron says, with playing games with your own sourced minis, do you just ignore the small differences in base size? This base is 25 millimeter, this one is 30. With base sizes, in most situations, I find it doesn't matter, because if it makes the base, if your base is bigger than it's supposed to be, not only does that give you extra range if you're measuring from the base to your opponent, but it also gives your opponent extra range to hit you because you are physically closer to them because your base size is bigger. So it kind of, oops, I keep hitting the mic. It kind of comes out in the wash. So for me, you know, like if it's a game with a lot of melee combat and lots of models, like I can see why Games Workshop recently has decided that orcs shouldn't be on 25 millimeter bases anymore or whatever, because then you can fit so many more orcs into a combat because you can pack them so tightly around the people that they want to slaughter. But in any other kind of type of game, I don't think it makes a big, huge difference. And so, you know, again, if you're playing in a tournament, the tournament should have rules for all of that. Like, these have to be on this size base, or this has to happen, or that has to happen. But if you're just playing with your friends, you just have to generally kind of work with it. Jim Reed says, good morning, old guy here, 55. Wanting to start 40K. I'm new to wargaming, so how out of place am I going to be amongst the kids? Oh, there's plenty of people who are playing it at that age. I mean, I'm 48, so, you know, I'm not that much younger. To get started, honestly, I'd tell you, if you're interested in 40K, or if you're interested in the 40K lore, story, models, I'd tell you maybe to actually look towards Kill Team first, because you can start a lot smaller. If you're going to play actual 40K, like you want to play a big army game, cool, that's fine. But if you're just like kind of wanting to dip your toe and try a couple different things, Kill Team's a good way to go, because it's generally like the maximum amount of models you can have in an army is 20. So that's like really easy. Like, and I've got plenty of Kill Teams that are 5-6 models, so you can kind of build them and paint them and get through them. A good way to start that I actually completely missed when I did this video last year about the how to get started and how to build a squad for Kill Team under $50. There is a box set you can get that GW puts out called First Strike, and it is a very starter beginner kind of like 2-player thing. And it's $40, and it comes with some like 3 Primaris Marines, 3 Reavers, which are kind of like scout versions of Primaris, and then it comes with like 3 Death Guard and like 6 Poxwalkers. So that's like the Death Guard kind of Nurgly dudes versus Space Marine people, and it's $40, and you get all those models, and they're press fit, they're easy to go together, and then basically with those 2 models you can easily start 2 Kill Teams. So yeah, that's a good way to go. Matt Sears, moderator Matt says the same thing. There are plenty of 40 plus 40K players. Absolutely. Let's see here. People talking about the Fez. Fezzes are cool. Brian Schmidt. Currently, I'm playing Iron Golems and Untamed Beasts, but I own the boxes for Cypher Lord, Splintered Fang, and the Unmade. I have Corpus Cabal in my mailbox. Cool. What's the Fez for? For wearing on my head. I just like Fezzes. I think they're cool. I've been buying them from this company at Gen Con, actually, for years now. I wear them for certain situations. I mean, it's not necessarily like a hat you wear outside, like, because it's sunny, you know what I mean? Like, I mowed the lawn yesterday, and I wouldn't wear this as the hat. I wore a hat because I don't want to get a sunburn, but it just doesn't have a brim, you know, or whatever. Plus, I don't want to get this sweaty. Like, these are nice. These are, like, handmade. Yeah, they're Fezzorama. They're a great company. You can get them online, but they also have a booth, and I'm a big fan. I have kicked around the idea, and I have talked with Jason, who is the kind of main Fez designer and I think co-owner of the company. I've talked about the possibility, maybe, of Tabletop Minions Fezzes. So we've had some conversations, actually the last two Gen Cons, and I have his card, and so thinking about it. We'll see, though. Let's see here. What else have we got? Let me see. You need a Fez with a police beacon. That'd be kind of cool. Are Fezzes and miniatures a thing that goes together? I mean, just tabletop gaming and Fezzes. I mean, I saw tons of people wearing them at Gen Con this year. I don't know. They're just... honestly, for me, one of the reasons I bought the first one is because it was a hat that would actually fit my giant melon. And so it was a situation of just like, I wonder, because I've walked into a couple other hat companies at Gen Con. Like, I walked into a hat company this year that makes all kinds of weird hats, but they had these sort of like watch cap type hats, and it was like kind of had like some leather and some suede or whatever. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I could see wearing that. And I tried it on, and it looked like, if you're old enough, you might remember, and if you lived in America, Dairy Queen was this company that sells ice cream. They're still around. Dairy Queen's still a thing. But back in the day, they used to sell these sundaes that were in upside down baseball caps, like like the helmets that they used to wear that were just like looked like the baseball cap, but they were hard plastic and stuff when you were getting batting. Right. So they would make little tiny ones, and then they would put them upside down, and then you would put ice cream in them, and you would, as a kid, you would eat your ice cream out of this little tiny hat. That most hats look like that on me. It's just like a little tiny thing on my head. And so so I walked in there and I was like, oh, this hat is, nope, now you ain't gonna wear it. Nope. And then they didn't have any bigger hats than that. And like, well, we can make you a hat. And I'm like, well, sure. I mean, they're a hat company. It makes sense. But they didn't have any there, so I didn't pick any up. But the Fez people, like I said, make hats that make my head look small. So good on them. Jay Solo Art says, I have a massive cranium as well. Yeah, it's a thing. Where else are we? Error Zero says that my head is a virtual planetoid. I cannot find hats that fit. Well, if you like Fezzes, I would tell you to go look up Fezzorama. Adam, the 11th Doctor. Is the 11th Doctor your favorite from Doctor Who? He dug Fezzes. I never really watched Doctor Who much. I don't know what it was, but I just never really... I was never super into the Doctor there. Boredom Junkie says that Lurch was played by Karel Strukian. He was also the giant/fireman in Twin Peaks. Oh, yeah. Gaddis Gaming asked, did you demo the new Marvel Superheroes game? I didn't. I did have the guy kind of explain it to me quickly on Sunday, as far as just a little bit. But, I know there was tons of people that were hanging around. They were getting demos the rest of the time, and everything just jumped. Let me see here. Something. I just saw something about Fezzorama. Where the heck? I just saw something about the Marvel game. Anyway. Uncle Adam, will you be posting your seminars from Gen Con on the channel for those of us who could not make it? I did not record it, no. I tried 2 years ago. I tried to record my, I videotape one of the seminars that I did at Adepticon, and it just didn't work out. Like, I had a wireless mic, and the batteries died like halfway through, and the camera was, and it's hard because it's like an hour and a half of me yammering on. And then it's also difficult because when people start asking questions, and I have to try to get a microphone to them and everything. I've kicked around the idea of like actually sitting down and just like trying to make like a class about YouTube that I can put on the channel or do something like that. But yeah, I don't. That's about it. Here we go. Legionnaire says Atomic Mass Games, those are the guys that are making the Marvel game, will be making terrain because the terrain is destructible. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. Well, hopefully they do a lot too. Yes, Matthew Sears also says they have a MODOK. MODOK is the laziest of boys in that he looks like a lazy boy. He's just basically like a chair with a face. And I've never really read the comics a ton, so I look at this model and I'm like, the heck is that? Anyway, but I had friends of mine who are big into comics are like, oh, it's MODOK. And I'm like, all right, well, he looks comfy, you know? So yeah. Charles, have you changed your mind from previous Gen Cons? Still not worth going to? I mean, for me, it's worth it because I do a lot of business there. Like, I talk to a lot of people, and I also, it's great to see viewers and stuff like that, but I also talk to a lot of manufacturers and things like that and all that stuff. So for me, it is useful. I'm not saying it's not useful for other folks. I think that if you like to play multiple types of games, like you're into RPGs and miniatures, or you're into board games and miniatures, or you're into all three, or whatever, then it's great because all of those things are in one spot. I'm not necessarily saying you should go every year, you know, because it can be expensive, it can be difficult even just to find hotel rooms and stuff like that. But if you've got those issues kind of licked in some fashion, then, and you enjoy big crowds and you enjoy that kind of stuff, it's a great place to go. I would love it if every tabletop gamer in the world could go at least once, like a pilgrimage kind of a thing. I know that that's obviously not doable, but I think it's still a good convention. I have a good time, but that's partially because I'm also there doing business. I've also got a very good friend who is very good at getting the hotel rooms that we stay in. Like this year we stayed in a penthouse in the Embassy Suites, which was not as fancy as it sounds. It was on the top floor, and it was nice. It was big, you know. It had 2 bathrooms, but only 1 shower. Like otherwise, the other bathroom had a bathtub in it, which I thought was a little weird. But it was like it was a kitchen. Like if we wanted to, we could have cooked there. I'm not going to do that, but we could have. But you know, and yeah, so it was great, and it's like a block and a half away. But if I did not have it, you know, that kind of thing, it would be a lot harder. The housing is difficult, but they are adding a lot more housing to the downtown area. They're building some new huge add-on and the whole thing. And it's all, yeah, they're doing a lot of work. So, yeah, I think it's still, if you can do it, if you can swing it, it's a great convention to at least hit once because it is astounding and it will blow you away. It's the biggest one in the country. So, absolutely. Hello from Poland. I joined Sunday show for my first time. Well, good. I love what you're doing for Wargaming Hobby. Your videos helped me come out of Wargaming Hobby depression after my hobby team split up. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. It's I think that the Wargaming Hobby can help. I've found that it helps me a ton when I'm like overwhelmed or bummed or anything like that. Like I don't, thankfully, knock on wood, I don't have depression, but I've got family members that do. And so it's I find that it does still give me this sort of meditative kind of stress relieving thing. Like yesterday afternoon, I was working on Scout Troopers and Death Troopers, and I was listening to audiobook. Been listening to, it's a book, but it's actually the second in a series. The first book was called Lock In, and it's by a writer named John Scalzi, and it's very interesting. It's basically about it's kind of a little bit in the future, but not too far in the future. There's a flu, I think, a disease that people get. It's like this huge epidemic that goes kind of worldwide. And some people die just like they do from the regular flu, but not, like old people maybe and younger kids and things like that. And so it's like a big flu epidemic that way. But people who don't die from it, like 1% of those people become completely paralyzed, which is known as being locked in. And then this happens to the First Lady, which was a woman named, last name Hayden, First Lady Hayden. And so it becomes kind of like, she becomes like, basically, long story short, is because the First Lady's locked in, and like 1% of the entire planet now is, they do this huge technological thing, and they build these neural networks that they can put into these locked in people's brains because everything still works, they just can't move. And then they're able to use those networks to run robot bodies. So you're at home in like a bed sort of a thing, but you get to go to work and do stuff in your cool robot body, and then you come home and charge at night and whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And so the main story is about this, and they're referred to as Haydens. This Hayden named Chris, who is in the FBI and joins the FBI and is doing stuff and things, and then it's like a mystery, and it's very interesting. I like John Scalzi's work, and now I've started listening to the second book, which is called Head On or Head Off, Head On, I think, which, because I'm listening to him on Audible, the first one I really liked. It was Will Wheaton was doing the narration, and the second one it's Amber Benson, who played Tara on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She was like Willow's girlfriend, and I like her voice fine, but when she does voices, like when she just starts doing, like some guy's voice or whatever, they always sound drunk, and so that's a little disconcerting. But otherwise, it's been fine. But yeah, good books. I'm glad that it's becoming a series. Anyway, that all that stuff, taking that time, sitting there, focusing, listening, is, I find, very helpful for my psyche. Let's just say that. Let me see. What else have we got here? Anyone else? Anyone know of a way to easily take apart models that were assembled with a modeling cement, such as Tester's Red Tube? That's a good question. CA glue is very easy to get apart. You either just throw it into like some sort of stripping compound, like LA's Totally Awesome will help, or you can even just throw it in the freezer, and then the glue becomes brittle, and you can just sort of pop the model apart. But something like that, I don't know. That's a good question. Nicholas Campbell says, do you have a spray booth that you can recommend? If you just type in airbrush spray booth into like Amazon, there's a great one for about $100. I've not used it personally. I've wanted to pull the trigger on it, but have not, just because I don't have a great need for it. But Matt from Game 4, where I work on my day job, he just got one, and he really loves it. So they even make one now, I think, with LED lights built into it too. So, but yeah, he's super happy with it, and it's been working out well that way. Let me see. Shadow the Reader says, no, Shadow Threader. Sorry, Shadow Threader says, boy, Malifaux is a lot of fun. Played a game of 30 soul stones. Last played during first edition. So soul stones in that game are like points. So like you're playing it's like you're playing a 30-point game, which means how many points you can spend on the models. So it's a smaller game versus a larger game or whatever, but they base it off as soul stones, which is a thing from the lore in Malifaux. Yeah, I should have probably picked up the 3rd edition book, but it was one of those situations where I had a real hard time finding Weird's booth. Like, I guess it was in the main hall, but they also had a secondary booth out in the gaming hall. But yeah, it was one of those deals where I like literally never, because they usually have this giant evil teddy bear that they have in their booth, and I did not bump into that guy this year, so it was difficult. Yeah, definitely. David Turner asks, thoughts on the new Space Marine Codex? I don't have a copy of it, so I don't really know much about it. I know that it seems odd to me that they've already released a second Codex for the Space Marines, but it is their biggest seller. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Let me see here. Turns out I am not a Shriner. That's true. I'm not. I don't even own a motorcycle. Fez makes a good dice shaker. You'd have to put a lot of dice in there, I would think. Yeah. Let me see. Oh, geez. I keep goofing up. Moderator Matt says, sign me up for a robot body. I'll stay in bed. I mean, it's not ideal. You also have to have like a weird thing stuck into your head. You know, they have to open up your skull and put a neural network in there. But I mean, other than that, it's fine. What else? Yeah, I got way behind already. Let me see here. Have you checked Thingiverse for 3D printed stalagmite? Oh, that's an answer to someone else. Raise your hands, Filipitados homies. I'm not actually Filipino, sorry. Artie Jr. says, I will be checking out the Aeronautica Imperialis game. Looks cool. You know, that was not in the... They didn't have... I didn't see that anywhere. Like, I stopped by the Games Workshop booth a couple of times. At one point, I stopped by... speaking of stuff... It's at one point I stopped by and I bought the convention special fancy Primaris Lieutenant, which is way down here on the bottom. I have my bag of stuff right here, but it's inconvenient. All right. So this guy, Lieutenant, whatever his name is, something with an A. What the hell is his name? Amelius. Sure, why not? Anyway, so this was available at Adepticon, but the line at Adepticon, even though it was like 5,000, 6,000 people at Adepticon, the line at Adepticon in the GW booth was always an hour and a half long for reasons. The line at Gen Con, nearly 70,000 people, was like 25 minutes tops. So I was like, well, that's weird. But so, and I had a bunch of Instagram to do, so I was like, well, I'll just stand in line, do Instagram, and then when I get up to the front, go, one of these, please. So I did that right away on Thursday. He's just a cool Primaris lieutenant that I just thought was kind of interesting, and I missed him at Adepticon. They had Warcry that they were demoing there. They had Age of Sigmar. They had Kill Team, but they did not have that, which I was kind of bummed by. I was kind of hoping to see that. So, Eric Swearingen Music says Airbnb is where it's at for Gen Con. A lot of the Airbnb places around Gen Con have figured out that they can make a ton of money during Gen Con, so the prices for Airbnb have gone up in some places. So keep that in mind as well. Let's see here. VJ Morph says, I've got to put the Gaslands Refueled book on my Father's Day list. Yes, that's a great book. They really did amazing work with the new Gaslands book. It's really nice. Definitely. Liam says, hey there, Adam. Haven't been to the Every Other Sunday show in a while. Good to be back. Well, we're glad to have you. Absolutely. The Animaster says, I just finished surprising my wife with a brand new kitchen, so now I can get back to painting minis. Sounds like a lot of work, and I'm glad that you can get back to painting minis. John Russell says, I've had good luck with using hot water for loosening glue joints. Well, that's something to try. I mean, it doesn't sound like it would like mess anything up if it didn't work. You know what I mean? So, Andrew says about the Amazon spray booth, I have used the $99 one with the LEDs. Works great. So yeah, Torch says I have that spray booth, and it's awesome. I would get a spray booth, but because I airbrush in the weird little Harry Potter room underneath the stairs in my basement, I don't kind of have to, because it's just like if paint gets all over the place, it's okay because it's just staying in one little room, and every once in a while I just wipe things down and it's fine. But if you are airbrushing in a larger room, or if you're airbrushing, like, God forbid, you have to like airbrush in the dining room or something like that, and you don't want to get paint dust everywhere, those spray booths are great for capturing that stuff. And like at Nova, the Nova Open, which I'll be at the end of this month in DC, last year, like in the hobby area, they just had like 3 of those spray booths just in like this area. It's like in a hallway, so you could just go and airbrush if you wanted to, and it was fine, and they didn't have to worry because it wasn't going to get like paint all over the place. You know what I mean? Ow, something's poking me underneath the... Oh, weird. Just note that spray booth on Amazon is all the same thing with different manufacturer stickers slapped on it. Yeah, I mean, that's the world we live in these days. Is this one company that makes everything and then just everyone resells it. So yeah. Randall says, I stripped down some Battletech minis recently with the totally awesome stuff. Worked great. Yeah, it is. I'm amazed by it. A lot of people talking about spray booths. Emily says, I've been enjoying listening to the podcast D4 on the Floor. One of our minions is in it. It's a 5th ed D&D group, and I'm almost caught up to current. I love listening to podcasts. I don't... How to try to find more gaming ones, but I haven't. I listen to some, and then I listen to some others that have nothing to do with gaming. Yeah, but that's yeah. What was I? Oh, role-playing. I actually bought a couple of role-playing books while I was at Gen Con. It's amazing. This one's really heavy, as you can tell. So I picked up this thing. It's called Eclipse Phase. It's the second edition. I've seen their booth for years. I've been walking around Gen Con. It has reminded me a little bit of almost like a White Wolf kind of like vampire style game, like the people in the booth, the way they dress and the way the booth looks and all that kind of stuff, but like a cyberpunkish version of that. So this year I decided to pick it up. It's thick. It's 400 plus pages. It's all color. It's interesting. Just story alone. Like, I have a suspicion, a strong suspicion, that I will probably never play this. But the thing that's cool about RPG books in some situations is that you can, at the very least, there's usually a lot of fluff. There's far more fluff in any given RPG book than there is in any given miniature book, generally, miniature rules book. So there's something to be said about sometimes just picking these things up and getting cool ideas, or even just reading it for enjoyment. Like, they kind of explain the world to some degree in the beginning of this thing in like a little, there's almost like a novella in the beginning of this, which was super interesting. So I've read that. I'm going through now looking at other stuff. Again, like I said, I doubt I'll probably ever play it. But I did want to pick it up finally because I've been walking past that booth for years and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So the other RPG that I picked up is, in comparison, quite a bit smaller. This is a little thin booklet and it's called Casket Land. And I just thought the artwork was super awesome, and it's one of those kind of indie RPGs where like you don't play like a long, like this, you play like a long campaign. Same with Dungeons and Dragons, same with most RPGs. This is kind of like a one and done. You play it, and then the next time you play it, you have all new characters, and it's like a one-off sort of a situation. It came with not only the cool little black and white book, this is actually silver instead of white, but it's just a thin little book with kind of cool artwork. There's a little Baba Yaga kind of thing, and there's, just, it's, anyway. It's an Old West, like a weird Old West. Let's see, they've got a quick synopsis. Casket Land is a bleak, occult, Western role-playing game with a focus on making difficult decisions as a group. That's kind of interesting. Plus, it came with DM screen. So there's this is what the players would see, like that. And then there's the information in here for the game master or whatever, and it was like $25 for the two of these things together, which I thought was cool. And I like to support indie stuff, and I just thought this might actually get played because it's a one-off thing and it'd be kind of fun. This book, which is massive and is full color and is 60 pages and a hardcover and weighs not 60 pages, 400 pages. It cost $60, which I thought was pretty reasonable, honestly. I also then picked up, and I'm looking forward to hopefully trying out, King's War Vanguard. Your warband, your story. And then this is the new expansion, which is called Ice and Iron. And so Kings of War Vanguard is it's a small-scale skirmish version of Kings of War. You're not moving around rectangles full of models and units and stuff like that. You're moving around single units. And I've been hearing about it for a while. This is not new. This part, I think, is new. This came out maybe at Gen Con. But this is not new. But it's I've been interested in it for a while, and I keep wanting to, so I picked it up at Gen Con, and the folks at actually at Mantic were like, here, take this, because I had been talking with with Martin, who's the kind of head marketing dude there. Been chatting with him back and forth for a number of years. He's a super great bloke, I think, because he's English. He's a bloke, and so he was like, yeah, definitely. When I see you at Gen Con, so I'm looking forward to trying this out and seeing what it's about. I like to be able to speak about different games that are in the right kind of area. Like, this is basically kind of like a fantasy sort of kill team sort of thing. So I want to be able to know more about it and maybe even potentially play it. But picked that up as well at Gen Con. So this is not going to turn into an RPG channel. But I did pick up a couple RPGs just because, like, back in the day when I used to go to Gen Con when it was in Milwaukee, I bought role-playing games all the time, fully knowing I was probably never going to play them, but there was just so much cool information and like story and all that kind of stuff in there. So it was always a lot of fun. Adron says, give me a slick-looking hardback with a ribbon marker and I am sold. I know, that one's got two. It's got a red one and a black one. So the Eclipse Phase. Kelly says, Adam, I don't like the LED lights with my airbrush booth from Amazon. Hard to see colors that is actually appear in true light. Yeah, I could see that. Ginger Jacobin says, yes, yay, a clip phase. I am curious to see what you think about it. So far, like, the story and everything is really super interesting to me. So I think that's cool. Joseph says, Eclipse Phase is an amazing game. Been a fan for years. Great setting. Yeah, it does seem like a really cool, super cool setting. It is a nice looking book. It's true. John Ashley Smith says, I'm building a helicopter with a minigun, rockets, 2 extra crew, and 2 boxes of grenades. Highly explosive, 50 cans. Don't get wrecked before I use all that ammo. I'm not sure what that... I think I may have missed the rest of that part. I'm not sure what that was about. Sorry. Let's see here. Daniel asks, my girlfriend wants to know if any celebrities, actors, and such ever go to Nova. I don't think so. I mean, as far as, like, celebrities, Gen Con is probably your best bet. I don't know if he was there this year, but there's a guy named Joe, and I'm going to mangle his last name, Mangileone, something like that. He's married to Sofia Varga. That might not be the right name either. He was in Magic Mike, I guess. I don't know. He's a big, tall, good-looking, Italianish looking guy, and he's super huge into D&D. And so I know he was at Gen Con last year. I don't know if he was there this year. There have been other... They don't do that as much as they used to. Like, they used to always have, like, these guests of honor and be like, oh, we're bringing in William Shatner, and you can sign autographs and, you know, stuff like that. Like, back in the day when Gen Con was in Milwaukee, I talked to Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in the original Star Trek series. I almost knocked over Mark Hamill because we were both heading different directions and bumped into each other, like literally bumped into him. Nearly knocked him down because he's considerably shorter than me. I told, what's his name? He plays Ash in the Evil Dead. Bruce Campbell. I pointed to where the bathrooms were for him, and that was fun. I saw Guar. I don't know if that's necessarily famous people, but they don't do that as much anymore at Gen Con. They don't like pay to like bring in somebody to sit there and sign a bunch of autographs. You don't see it like you used to in the day. And honestly, I kind of like that better. Like that's all San Diego Comic-Con stuff now. And they don't really do that at Gen Con, which I kind of appreciate a little bit. I don't know. So there's not a lot of it. There are people who are going there sometimes who are kind of famous because they like that stuff. I've seen Will Wheaton there in the past, even when it was still in Indiana, before, or after. But yeah, so I don't know. Frederick asks, anyone tried Riot Quest? I watched people play it for a little while. Riot Quest is a new game coming from the folks at Privateer Press. And it's a little... I don't want to say it's Shadespire, because it's not. But it's played on a hex board, which is kind of Shadespire-y. It's a bigger hex board, and it's kind of like a big melee kind of game. But it's using... It's almost as if you took some of their like figures and characters kind of from like Privateer Press, modernized them a little bit, made them just a little bit of that video game Overwatch, and then made them all fight in a big battle arena. It's kind of like that. It looks interesting, but it's designed to not be a miniatures game per se. It's a little more, again, gateway game-ish, which I think they could probably honestly use. So I don't know much more about it than that, but I did watch it, and they had ads all over the place for it. So, where are we at here? Mantic. Anyone tried Riot Quest? Let's see here. Thad says, in Casket Land, my character shot himself in the foot, and it was gnawed by a coyote. Well, that sounds bad. But I'm looking forward to giving that one a try, absolutely. What else have we got here? Hey, Tyrannoholic is here. Sue and I play. It's great. You need someone to play with? Call us. Referring to, I'm assuming referring to Kings of War Vanguard, because I know that Tyrannoholic is they're big fans of the Mantic stuff over there. I totally missed you guys at Gen Con. I don't know if you were there. Maybe that's why I missed you. Zachary says you should make another channel for RPG talk. I've not. Honestly, I played... Since 5th edition came out, I played a little bit of 5th edition with some of the guys at work during lunch, like maybe 3-4 times, tops. Previous to that, I played some 3.5 with my wife and some other friends back in the mid to 2000s, maybe late 2000s. Previous to that, I played some Rollmaster in college and some Shadowrun in college. And then previous to that, I played like original kind of D&D like when I was in 5th grade. So I've never been a big RPG guy, as it turns out. But I'm interested sometimes in the books and stuff like that. Snowfight says that RPGs really help you create lifetime bonds with friends. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. That's very true. Legionnaire says, I have a friend who is lamenting that you can't get as many RPGs in game stores anymore. Well, I mean, like, there's probably not as much of a variety. Like, if you go to any game store that's even vaguely worth its salt, they better have Dungeons & Dragons there, and they probably have Pathfinder there. But when you start getting past those two big dogs, you start finding it more and more difficult to find other stuff in stock. You know what I mean? I do find that at a lot of game stores. We have a great game store in Appleton, Wisconsin called Chimera Hobbies and Games, and they've got a huge RPG section, so that's really cool. But most of the other game shops that I know either have, like, the game shop that I go to here in town is mostly miniatures, although they've also got some board games. And they carry D&D and they carry Pathfinder, but they don't really go a lot further than that. Maybe some Shadowrun, but that's about it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing online now a lot with RPGs, meaning that they're either buying PDFs, like D&D Beyond and that kind of stuff. I know that Pathfinder's a lot of online, like PDFs and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a good question. Used to play Eclipse Phase with me group, says Apollo. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I like I said, I'd walked past the booth for years and seen it at Gen Con and stuff like that, and so yeah. Fantastic setting and nice system. A little confusing at first, though. Yeah, I haven't really even dug into the mechanics of it. I read like that kind of novella part at the beginning of this new book, and then I was looking and they're like, oh, well, if you're interested in this, then go to this page. If you're interested in this, and then one of the things is like, if you're interested in finding out about the setting, go to page 98. So I've been reading now the setting, which is like written from the aspect of a professor kind of teaching history to a bunch of like rich kind of like students. So it's interesting that way. What would you recommend for me to use as ice pillars on 40mm bases for my Malifaux crew? Ice pillars. Huh. That's a good question. Like, if you want them to be clear plasticky, that reduces what you've got available to you by a lot. I know that WizKids is cranking out some kind of different pieces of terrain almost from their kind of unpainted line, you know? Like, they have all those unpainted miniatures, but they also have sometimes little pieces of terrain. You might look at that. I've seen normal stone pillars, which you could paint as ice. I know they sell those separately. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. If you were going to try to just construct something, I would tell you probably to use some foam, like that pink foam that you use to insulate the outside of your house. You can usually get it at hardware stores. Not the foam, the white foam with the little balls in it, but you want the real nice, harder pink stuff. Or sometimes it's light blue, sometimes it's light green, but it's not the stuff with the balls that you know, usually have wrapped around electronics when you buy like a new TV or whatever. Don't ever use, well, I'm not saying don't ever use that. Especially if you want something small and very precise, don't use that stuff for that. Emily says that Adam goes to Nova. He's a celebrity, certainly. I'm sure that's what they were asking about. But I will be at Nova. Looking forward to it. For something a little different, what have you heard about Wild West Exodus? Curious about this rule set. Does anyone know how complex or crunchy the rule set is? I saw their booth. I stopped by. They had a lot of cool demo like terrain set up, a lot of like laser cut MDF that was well painted. That game is great for laser cut MDF because it would make sense that a lot of the houses would be wood anyway, you know, because it's Old West kind of. Well, alternate history World West. Weird West, as some people like to refer to it. I just have not gotten, like, I've looked at it for on and off for years, and I've just never quite pulled the trigger. Like, I probably should have sat down and done a demo. To be fair, every time I walked by their booth, though, their demo tables were all pretty full. So, but yeah. but I know it's getting more and more popular. It's owned now by a company called War Cradle out of the UK. Are there any recommendations for Cyberpunk skirmish games in the same flavor as Shadowrun? Well, I don't have it within arm's reach. It's actually over there. But there's a new game coming out from Osprey, and it's written by the dude who wrote This Is Not a Test, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic pseudo kind of Fallout miniatures game, back before Fallout actually had their own miniatures game. Anyway, he wrote a game for Osprey called Reality's Edge, which either came out, I think it's out now. I think it just literally came out like this week maybe. So if you're interested in Cyberpunk skirmish, I would check out Reality's Edge from Osprey. It's a nice hardcover. Because Osprey kind of does, like, the original Gaslands book was a real thin little, like, softcover book that was mostly blue and then had, like, a piece of artwork on it. And they've done that with a ton of their models, or their titles. But now the new Gaslands that's coming out, which is called Gaslands Refueled, is full color, hardcover, fancy schmancy. This Reality's Edge started hardcover. They didn't make a blue book for it, what they've been calling them. Roland says, wanted to say thank you, Tabletop Minions. A few Sundays ago, I asked if you were ever intimidated by sprues. Since then, I have those models assembled, and one of the best paint jobs I've ever done. Well, great, man. I'm super glad. That's sprues are, like the new stuff coming from Star Wars Legion. Allegedly, they're going to be starting to switch most stuff over to sprues. They haven't yet, but the droids that are going to be coming out in the new, the new set, those are already on sprues. Whereas the clones are not. The clones are like the other models where they come in little baggies and you just kind of put them together. But the droids are on sprues. Probably because the droids need to be on a harder plastic because they are so skinny. And if they were on a slightly bendier plastic, being so skinny, they would be very bent all the time. So it was kind of a necessity thing. But I've also been told that they want to make it so that all of the stuff is switched over. So, nonetheless, sprues are good in a lot of situations. And I'm glad that those worked out for you. So thank you for your positivity and encouragement to have us keep going and striving to do better. That's what I'm here for. I'm glad to hear it. What else have I got going on now here? Moderator Matt says this is not a pop culture channel, obviously. No, because I can't remember anyone's name who's like a famous person. Joe Mangalianello turns up in a lot of places to sell his T-shirts. Yeah, he's got a T-shirt line for D&D shirts and stuff, and he has this huge setup in his basement for running D&D and stuff. So that's really cool. Kevin Green asks, how was the selection of 28mm and 15mm historical minis at Gen Con? I didn't see any particularly. I mean, was Warlord even there? In the past, Warlord has been in the War Store's booth, I think. And the War Store doesn't have a booth there anymore because the War Store went out of business. So I don't remember seeing Warlord there. I didn't see a lot of historical much anything there. It's kind of not that convention. You know what I mean? Like, of the four main genres of tabletop gaming, you got your role-playing, your board games, your collectible card games, and your miniatures. Wargaming, okay? So the wargaming is the smallest of those genres. And when you go to Gen Con, it is the smallest of the genres at Gen Con, just because it just reflects the market, okay? So, like the companies you see there, you see Games Workshop, you see Mantic, you see Dust, you see... there's probably a couple others that I'm thinking... Well, obviously you see like Star Wars Legion and stuff like that, as part of some other companies like, Fantasy Flight and whatever. But, like, yeah, there's not, like, a lot of smaller miniatures companies there because the booths are so expensive. I mean, like, everything is very expensive there. Now, when you go to Adepticon or to Little Wars or conventions that are designed for that stuff, then it's a whole different story. You see a lot more of that stuff. But at a convention like Gen Con, it's of our small little niche within the tabletop gaming market. You only see the biggest dogs go there and have a booth because of the expense mainly. So yeah, there wasn't a ton of that I saw, and it seems as if it seems as if Gen Con is also trying to. I don't want to say they're driving out retailers, but they're slightly doing that a little bit. Like, I think that they would prefer if the companies that make these miniatures would come and have booths, as opposed to companies that are stores and sell other people's stuff. You know what I mean? Like, when you're a company and you're there trying to sell your stuff, but there's a store that's now rented a booth that's the same size as yours or a little smaller, but they're selling all your stuff at a discount, like, you know, on the other side of the hall, that is a bummer for you as the company who's trying to sell your stuff direct. I get that. As those kind of retailers are kind of getting pushed out a little bit here and there, I do fear that it's that as a buyer at that convention, a person who comes there to buy things in the dealer hall, that's going to be fewer places to buy things to some degree. So I don't know, but I understand it. Like, there used to be a company, there was one year where I was buying Games Workshop stuff that was like seriously like 2 rows over from Games Workshop's booth, and it was like 25% off. You know, and if you're Games Workshop, you're like, well, why did I come here if that guy's just going to sell my stuff for 25% off? Well, that's a good question, but I don't know. So yeah, I didn't see, I didn't see really anything in the way of 15 millimeter, much of anything. Now, if you were looking for dice, there were plenty of places selling dice. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of places. Hi, Adam. I'm planning on ordering some Shapeways shoulder symbols for my Space Marines, but I'm worried they might look too big. If I remember well, you have used them in the past. Are they good? Yeah, I mean, I've used them for, I bought the kind of Black Templar style, kind of Maltese cross ones, and I like those quite a bit. They work great. They're like perfectly kind of formed to like fit on the shoulder pads, and I like them a lot. Trainaholic says, didn't go to Gen Con, we're going to Valhalla. Ooh, cool. We'll have a good time. Valhalla is awesome. I can't go this year. Yeah, have a great time. It's a lot of fun there. Gaddis Gaming says that they have a Riot Quest, Privateer Press, has a Riot Quest how to play video on their YouTube channel. Oh, cool. I'll have to definitely check it out. Hokey Pokey says, hi, Adam. How do you feel about not painting your minis when just starting out, when you're afraid to mess it up? Should you get more minis to practice on, or just try it and hope for the best? So, yeah, I actually had a conversation with a guy at Gen Con kind of about that type of thing. I'm planning on making a video showing you kind of step-by-step sort of like how to practice. Like, the person I was talking to, his name was Michael? I think it was Michael. Michael or Matthew? Well, I think it was Michael. And we were talking about, because he's an artist and he draws, and so, I mean, you practice when you're an artist. You practice drawing, and you kind of have to practice painting if you're going to get into miniature painting. Now, normally you practice by painting the stuff that you want to paint on. Well, if you are fearful of painting the models because they're expensive and you don't want to screw them up, number one, always understand that you can always strip the models. Like, if you paint them now and then a year from now when you're a way better painter, you come back and go, ugh, I could do better than that, strip them and start over. I mean, you know, that's fine. Or another option is to go to Amazon or your local toy store, or even sometimes at the grocery store or department stores, buy a box of crappy, Army men and prime them, and then just practice painting on them. Practice throwing down base colors and then throwing a wash over it and then doing some dry brush highlighting and painting faces and do just all kinds of stuff like that. You can do a ton of stuff and learn a lot and not care because you're like, oh, they're Army men. It was $6 for an entire bag of them, or whatever. And as opposed to buying like a $35 model from Games Workshop who's like one dude and you're like, oh, I don't want to goof him up. Sure, I get that. Again, like I said, you can always go back and strip the model and start over again, but practicing on other stuff, even like practicing on just bits of plastic. Sometimes I practice blends on a plastic spoon that I've primed, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do just to give it a try and to practice. But we have to practice to some degree, we can't just like immediately start and be good. Nobody does. So that's the way it works. Adam, have you ever experimented with color shift paints? I'm about to. Turbo Dork, which it's an interesting name. Turbo Dork, which is a company that makes color shift paints here in America, pretty sure. They actually just sent me, I think I got them on Friday. They sent me a selection of their some of their new colors for that, and I want to try them out. Specifically, I want to try them on my Tyranid kill team. So it's interesting because they're not just like, oh, cool, put it in the airbrush and go to town. It's, you have to paint underneath first. And they tell you on each bottle, this should be, you should use black to it was a little fuzzy. You should use black and then paint that and then paint this color over it. Or you should use a light color, or you should, and there's, so it's interesting, and it's not just like spray it and go to town. There's a little bit more work to it than that. But I do want to definitely try it out and see how it looks, just because I think it would be neat, like on the hard kind of carapace parts of the Tyranids, if they had like a cool kind of, how some beetles have got that kind of color shift thing going on. I think that'd be fun to put on the back of some of my Tyranids. So we'll see how it goes. What else have we got? Joe Orthober says, Adam, you should give Judgment a try. Very fun minis game, low model count and beautiful minis, 54 millimeters. I've heard of it. I got to be honest that 54 millimeters is not. It's not something I'm super interested in. Like those are big. I should probably try to demo of it at some point. I remember they were at Adepticon, and I should try to maybe this year at Adepticon do that. But yeah. Zingbo says, Rollmaster, you have my sympathies. Luckily, a good friend of mine was running it as the GM and was very well, like, knowledgeable about it. And so, yeah. But it was, we played in, like, a Middle-earth kind of a campaign sort of situation. I was a Sindarin elf who was, I had some magic shenanigans going on, and I was also sort of lousy with a bow. So I had two things going on, so that was fun. Saber's Edge 68 says, I was at Gen Con 95 and Guar was there. Yeah, at Milwaukee. I was there too. It was a lot of fun. Have you ever been interested in trying one of the Warhammer RPGs? Yeah. The issue is that, like, with that, I've already got a bunch of the fluff, so as far as actually sitting down and playing an RPG, probably not. Sometimes I pick up an RPG because I'm like, I want to read the fluff, and it's very interesting to me. But it's also, again, I understand I'm probably not going to play it. So, yeah, that's kind of an issue. Whereas with, like, yeah, with 40K, I'd be like, I wouldn't buy it for the fluff because I've already got tons of other books, including Black Library stuff, and Audible books about the fluff. So that's not a necessity for me. People talking about ice pillars using tines of clear plastic forks or clear caulk. I was thinking about clear caulk because it would still be clear but also a little cloudy, which would be kind of icy, and you maybe do some blue wash on it, but it would look real globby probably depending on how you do it. Let's see here, what else have we got? Matthew Sears says, elf? Yes, it's true. Back in the day, I did play as an elf. I was in college. It was a weird time. It was experimenting. Also, I came last and so, like, there was a guy who was a Rohan. There was another guy who was like some sort of barbarian or something. And then they were like, what do you want to do? We kind of need a guy who's a magic guy. And I'm like, well, who does the best magic? And they're like, well, elves. And I was like, meh, all right. But again, like I said, it was college. You experiment. Gaming Troll says that I practice on sprues. That's also a good place to practice some painting. If you prime just some sprue and then do some stuff on it, or bits that you're not going to use that are already in a kit, you might want to try on that. Just do a little bit of practice that way too. What else have we got? Tyler Barry says, I am currently painting up my Thousand Suns with Turbo Dork's blue raspberry color shift. It turned out really nice. Yeah, I could see that. It'd be very cool. I could definitely see that. War Boss Worms has just got back into painting after a 3-year break. The most minis I've ever had painted. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. I need to break up my painting so that I don't get sick of painting marine after marine after marine. Yeah, so I just got done, like I said, I've finished 4 squads of stormtroopers, which admittedly they paint up real quick. But yeah, 4 squads of stormtroopers, and now I'm working on some scout troopers who are basically like stormtroopers but different, and then some death troopers who are basically black stormtroopers. Yeah, different weapons, you know, that kind of stuff. But so, and I'm going along fine right now, but I'm going to be painting some other stuff, and I think I might do a little bit of modeling for a bit too. I want to work on some kind of kit bashing stuff like I was talking about in Friday's video for Zone Raiders and whatnot. So I'll probably do that, and that'll help me to kind of like ease off a little bit, and I'll get back into finishing up. Although I might try to finish an 800-point Empire list, and then maybe switch gears a bit, and then come back and work on Rebels. I think that's kind of my plan, really. Semper Buffo? So have you tried the contrast paints? I just got a few yesterday. Yes. Honestly, the Stormtroopers, most of those guys, all of those guys, the regular Stormtroopers, I primed them white, and then I used Apothecary White, which is a contrast color, on them, which is basically like a really super light gray, but it gets everywhere. And then once that completely dries, then I go back and I dry brush white onto those guys again to kind of bring up the flat areas back to white. And then just the creases and that stuff kind of get that gray color. And then I paint all the parts that need to be black on the Stormtrooper with Black Templar, which is another contrast color. Those two colors alone, like, made me just absolutely rip through those Stormtroopers really quickly, which is nice. Then I paint the bases with traditional paint, which I'm doing kind of a desert scheme, and then they're done. So, yeah, I've not used all of the contrast colors yet, but I've used a bunch of them. There's some that I really like, and there's some that I do not like. I will probably eventually, once I kind of get through and use kind of almost most of them, I want to make a video about it. I didn't want to make a video right away when they first came out because I didn't feel as if I really could go through and talk about them yet. But now that I've been using them in the real world, I want to be able to make a video about it and talk about them. So we'll see how that goes. Let me see here. Paul Noxie says, "Hey everyone, been lurking on mobile 30 minutes and finally got to my PC." Oh, well, good to have you here, Paul. Divine Edric says, "Where was Turbo Dork when I was painting my Scarab-inspired Tyranids? I managed to get some cool effects, layers of bright paint and a dry brush of silver." Yeah, I know what you mean. There's also, who else makes, I think that Green Stuff World, I think maybe also makes some color shift paints, but the Turbo Dork ones are cool, at least the ones that I've seen so far. I really like that. They've been doing good work on the labels too. Because the labels are very indicative of what's going on inside as far as the color shift. It's actually kind of cool. Fire Ant Farm says, "Uncle Adam, do you mask the glue points?" Excuse me. "Do you mask the glue points before priming when you paint in sub-assemblies? Trying to decide how to handle some of the Warcry models. Apologies for repeat." Yes, I do generally do that. What I do to mask the glue joint spots, so like if you're painting in sub-assemblies, for those of you that don't understand what we're talking about when we say sub-assemblies, sometimes you don't want to completely put the model together when you paint it. You want to paint it in smaller parts and then put it all together. Let's say there's a big cloak and you need to paint the inside of the cloak. Well, the guy's body is in the way and it's really hard to get the paintbrush up inside there and get everything. So sometimes if the model works well that way, you leave the cloak off, paint the inside, do the other stuff, and then put it all together afterwards. It doesn't work in every situation, but when it does, it's great. Another situation is sometimes, like in more fantasy games, guys will have a huge shield. Like if you look at the Chaos Warriors, I forget what they call them now, but Chaos Warriors, the old school Chaos Warriors, have this big, huge tower shield if you build them that way. And it blocks a lot of their body. Now, normally I am of the mind that if I can't see that part of the model, I ain't going to paint it. No reason to. That being said, there's still a bunch of what you can see kind of behind the shield, depending on where you position it. Secondly, that shield point just glues on in one spot, and it's a real simple thing. So for me, what I did was, before priming them, I take poster putty, and I put it like the shield, like by the elbow, there's a ball, and that goes into like a joint on the body where the elbow would go up against the body. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's the glue point. That's where the shield basically attaches itself to the body. I just put a glob of poster putty in that socket and one over the ball on the elbow that's holding the shield. And then when I paint them and prime them and all that stuff, primer doesn't get on that stuff. And then when it's time to finally glue the thing together, when they're all painted up, then I just pull off the poster putty, and then that way it's glue plastic to plastic. If you glue paint to paint, then very frequently the paint can pull away from the plastic and then the glue, and then the thing falls apart. So you always want to have glue when you put glue in there, you want it to go plastic to plastic and not on paint, and that's why you kind of do that. So there's that. Darson Hutt says, do you find yourself bouncing from troops to vehicles / war machines? Sometimes. Like, I have a tendency to work on troops all in a row. I do a lot of assembly line painting. So if I'm working on a vehicle very frequently, I'm just working on one vehicle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing multiple vehicles because most games don't do that. But so I'll do a whole bunch of troops, and then sometimes I'll switch over into a vehicle. But I can't think of the last time I played a game that used vehicles. You know what I mean? Like, none of the skirmish games really do for the most part. I will have an ATST for my Star Wars Legion, but he's going to probably have to hold off a little while before I get him built and all that stuff. What other stuff did I bring home? Oh, speaking of Star Wars Legion, I did pick up... So I picked up the Tauntaun Riders, which, as it turns out, were already in stores. I thought they were like a special, hey, this isn't out yet, but it turns out they were already in stores. I just wasn't paying attention. Luckily, I did not have to stand in line very long. Like, on Thursday, the line was hours long. And then Friday, they didn't get any new product or something, and some people were peeved and whatnot. And then on Saturday, like literally 20 minutes after the hall opened on Saturday, I walked up like, well, where's the line? And I asked the guy, like, where's the line start? He's like, you're the line. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I just went in and I bought this, and then I also bought the Dewback Rider, who is not yet, I don't think, available in stores. I'm pretty sure the Dewbacks aren't out yet. Now, the downside to our friend the Dewback, as I've been doing a little bit of research and reading things on like Reddit and places like that, is that evidently the base that's in this box right now is the wrong size. Most likely. 95% chance that this is going to have a huge base in it, which is the size of the base that I think the AT-AT is on. Not the AT-AT, sorry, ATST. And this guy's supposed to be on a large base. So because they shipped these from China early, because these aren't supposed to be in stores until September, I think, or maybe October, but I think it's September. There was like a goof up in manufacturing, so I think this guy's got the wrong size base in there. So he's going to be a little Dewback on a big-ass base, which we don't want, I guess. So I guess Fantasy Flight's trying to figure out like how they're going to ship people new bases or whatever the deal is going to be. So anyway, I have not opened it yet, but I did pick him up. I had a Dewback toy when I was a kid, back when the Star Wars movies were out and stuff like that, and you push the little stormtrooper guy in the little trapdoor in his back, and then you move the head of the Dewback one way and the tail went the other way and stuff, and loved that thing. So when I saw these guys, I mean, they're, you know, the heads don't move, but still pretty cool. I was a big fan. I got a crazy, weird little Cthulhu statue that I'm going to put somewhere, maybe on my desk at work. That was just a cheap little thing that I found. I stopped by one night. I forget which night, but I stopped by Renegade Game Studios. They had like a room where they were showing off a bunch of their stuff, and they had the different events going on in different parts of the night. And I stopped by at one point because my friend Terry Latorco, that Terry girl from YouTube, she is now, I think, director of marketing for them, which is really super cool. And so I stopped by to just poke my head in and say hi, and then I ended up getting into a paint and take where we were painting Power Rangers, and I met a bunch of other people, which were very nice. And then she gave me a Megazord deluxe figure to paint, and she gave me another one to give to Sam, which I will give to him next weekend, because Sam and I are working on some videos next weekend. So, yeah, so that was cool. That was very nice. What else did I get? I didn't buy any brushes or paint or anything along those lines. Oh, I did get... Packaging is not ideal. So, this is something called Tinkerturf, which I picked. I found it at, well, I didn't find it. I didn't discover it. I just saw it at the ACD Games Day thing in May that I went to, which is a distributor conference, and I posted some pictures, I think, on Instagram. So Tinkerturf is interesting. It's cardboard terrain that's already pre-printed, and you slot it all together and stuff like that. Like this is, you can kind of see, this is making like scaffoldings and ladders and whatnot and everything like that. And they make it like clean, and they make a rusty version and stuff like that. And it just goes together well, and it looks nice on the tabletop. And the thing that's great about it is there's a lot of pre-printed terrain out there, which looks okay, except that the edges look kind of like crap, because it's usually like you can either see the bright cardboard on the inside, or sometimes it's even like white plastic. So then you either have to go through and try to paint all the edges or do something like that. I don't know if you can see this, probably not. But the way that they get around that here is they actually ply in different colors in the corners. So instead of just being light gray like chipboard, there's also plies of black in there and too. So when you put it all together, which I haven't taken out of the package yet, but when you put it all together, you don't notice the edges nearly as much with the color schemes that they're doing. And so I picked up, like I said, this is Ladders and Catwalks. I picked up, Containers set, which I don't think you can see. They're showing the wrong side on the inside of this. It's just the insides. And then I also picked up this big honkin' set, which is a good deal thicker, which is called the Maglev Rail Depot, which I think I did not mean to buy. Now that I come to think of it, I don't think it was supposed to be. Well, maybe it was. I'm not sure. I may have bought the wrong thing, but this might not be. But it's a bigger, like there's a lot of scaffolding and stuff. If it's the thing that I bought that's proper, then either hopefully I bought the right thing. But I do want to talk about those a little bit and kind of show those off a little bit and see how those work out. Because I love the idea for a lot of people about pre-printed kind of simple terrain that they can do just to kind of get their table to look a lot nicer quicker. But like I said, a lot of them are not great. So, yeah. Anyway, let me see. What else have we got? I got my Scale Color Artist Acrylics paints from the Kickstarter, and I've been using them for a few weeks, and I love them. Best paints that I've used, says Kim. Oh, I've not heard of them. Huh, interesting. Useful G says I use paper clips to pin all of my sub-assembly pieces, so it's a strong joint, even paint to paint. At least that's what I hope. I mean, yeah, if you pin your stuff, that helps a ton. So pinning, for those of you that don't know, is, and you used to see this a lot in, and you still do, in War Machine, although not as much anymore, that now a lot of War Machine's plastic. The War Machine models, when they were metal, and also big, chunky, models, the way that the like arm would go onto the shoulder was there would just be like a big kind of socket and then just a thing, and that's great so that you can position it any way you want. That's awesome, except that it's kind of a lousy glue joint. And when this arm is all solid metal and has lots of armor on it and is heavy, you can easily have arms fall off pretty frequently and stuff like that. So what a lot of people who are wargamers or War Machine players would do is they would drill a hole into the socket and drill a hole into the ball and then stick like a little tiny thin piece of, not thin, but short piece of paper clip in there. And then when you glue everything together and you stick that in there, that pin, that extra piece of paper clip kind of helps to hold it in place. It's a little bit more fiddly, but it's good in the long run. So yeah, it's that's what pinning is all about. But I've found that, I don't know, like, I don't do it on a ton of stuff. There's only a few situations, and honestly, if it's a plastic model, I don't know if I've ever pinned it. You know what I mean? No, that's not true. I did use a pin system on magnetizing my Forge Fiend, Chaos Forge Fiend, because they can either have the kind of like Gatling gun arms. This is Gatling gun arms, or they can have like plasma gun arms, and just magnetizing them wasn't holding them on enough, so I also kind of put a pin in there so when you get it in the hole and slide it in there and then attach it to the magnets, that's like 2 points it's holding it up. If it's just the magnets, they would droop the guns sometimes or whatever, so the pins kind of helped. But that's not exactly the same thing as regular pinning, because normally pinning is like a thing that you do to reinforce a bond that you want to stay. This was actually almost like a hook to help hang those things on there, so the magnets didn't have to do all the work. That was kind of the thing. Ross Wolf says, any talk about Car Wars? Apparently they're changing to Hot Wheels scale. They are. I played it actually at their convention back in April in Austin that I went to. And I played the beta version, and it is interesting, and it is kind of it's a Hot Wheels scale, but it's not like Gaslands where you go out and buy Hot Wheels. Like, they're going to sell the models because they're on a special kind of base that's designed kind of with the game ruler, so that it's a whole thing. It's an ecosystem that they're building. I did not see any demos at Gen Con for it, though. I do think I did see the Steve Jackson Games booth at one point, but I didn't see any Car Wars in there. I did see Car Wars demos at Origins in June. So yeah, that's still coming. From what I understand, they're going to do a Kickstarter on it, which means who knows how long it'll take until you actually get to play it, but yeah. So yeah, Useful G says that Fiddly is my middle name. Oh, that's fun. That's must be fun on your passport. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of models that are real fiddly. You know what I mean? But is Tinkerturf cardstock or laser cut wood? Cardstock. It's it's like a thick multiply cardstock, and but it still slots together, kind of like it, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's not wood, and it's also, like I said, pre-printed, which is also cool. Kim says that I pin all my models because I use a cork holder. Yeah, I've done that. That's true. I mean, I may not pin joints, but if I'm going to be painting it separately from the base, then I pin on the foot so that I can then stick it to a piece of cork or something like that. Yeah, that's true. Maglev Rail Depot looks like a scaffold arch crane. Cool piece. Then I think I did buy the right piece then. I think that's true. Because they were also selling a bunch of Maglev rails, and I was like, I don't want that. But the scaffold arch crane thing, that does remind me. Because they had it built there. Like, that you could see it. And then, but then, it wasn't super easy to go, that's the thing that I want, and then find it below. At least the day that I went. When I came back a couple days later to buy the other pieces, because I bought the big piece first, they had redone that entire display, and then it made a lot more sense. But the first time I was like digging through stuff and looking around, and it was kind of a mess. So they learned and fixed that up. Kelly says, did you see anyone pick up the new Bushido 2-player starter set? I have not played, but the system looks great. Different than most. The Bushido booth I saw all the time. Like, I don't know what it was, but I walked past that booth I don't know how many times. And so their models are always amazing looking, but I did not see anybody buying. Well, no, I saw people in the booth. I'm assuming some of them bought, but none of the people that I knew that I was there with bought any, but the models do look awesome. People talking about what they like to use to pin stuff. Fazrin says, fiddly models, you should try putting Infinity models together. I have, and that's one of the reasons I don't play Infinity. Years ago, Battle Foam had a deal with Corvus Belli where if you bought one of the Battle Foam bags, it was either the Alpha bag or the Beta bag, I forget exactly which one. The bigger one, I think. I don't remember which one's which. Anyway, if you bought it, if you were one of the first 500 people to buy that bag, then you got this limited edition model where it was some sort of mercenary, but he was also a little, like, he was like a mercenary guy, but there was also a little model of Infinity bag that you could put on the base. Like, he was standing there and he had a gun, but for some reason he brought his miniatures with him in a battle foam bag. It was kind of weird, but it was funny. Anyway, yeah, that guy was like, there was like 100 pieces in that model. Okay, there was not 100 pieces, but there was at least 12 in a metal model that's this tall. You know what I mean? And that was a lot of work. That was back when I was still doing stuff for Beasts of War, because they sent me the bag and then the model, and then I like did an unboxing of all the pieces in the little clamshell from Infinity, and then you go away and you build it and you throw black wash on it, and you come back and say, this is what it looks like when it's finished. Well, it took me forever to build that model because it was a lot of pieces and it's metal and it's hard. So yeah, it was yeah. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I generally don't play Infinity as well, is because the models look great, but they're just way too many parts for me. And I know that they're getting better. I've heard a lot of people tell me that they're reducing the number of parts and the sculpting process is getting better, which is great. But it's just, the game itself for me is just not, I don't know. There's something about the way the rules are done that just doesn't quite do it for me. Paul says, I've been slowly teaching my friend Jimmy Kill Team in the pub when we meet up. One model versus one model. This week we'll be going to his house with a full board and terrain. It's not a bad way to start, like one model versus one model, because then you can really kind of like focus on just one model and just those stats and just understanding how combat works, like a one-on-one sort of a situation. It's a little bit less daunting, maybe. I could see that. It makes a lot of sense. Ross Wolf says, all we need now is GW to bring back Dark Future back in Hot Wheels scale, and then we'll have a great car combat economy. I doubt that GW is going to bring back Dark Future as a tabletop game, but there is a Dark Future video game that came out maybe this year that is licensed from GW. So if you liked Dark Future and you like PC games, you could try that out, from what I understand. Who did what's her Wargamer Girl did a video about it, but not for her channel. It was for something else that she did. Speaking of Wargamer Girl, in about 15 minutes from right now, so 11 a.m. Central Time, which is where I am, when this show finishes, if you guys are interested, you might want to go over to Wargamer Girl's YouTube channel, because she will be releasing the Kill Team Battle Report that she and I did last October at Valhalla. So Tommy, her husband, filmed this battle report between she and I. I don't even 100% remember what models we used anymore. I think I had Necrons. I don't remember what models that she used. But we played at Valhalla in October of 2018. And yeah, they're releasing it literally. Like, she texted me last night. She's like, when does your live show get done? And I told her. And she's like, cool, because I'm going to then release it. So right at 11, as soon as we get done, wrap up here, you can go watch that battle report on Wargamer Girl's channel and check that out over there. So yeah, that's finally coming out. Travis says that 99% of my minis are painted subassembly. I clear coat before super glue, and it creates a strong bond. Clear coat before super glue. Interesting. I've never tried that. I don't do 99% of my. I do. It's a small percentage that I do subassembly, but it also, like, lately it's been, it's Stormtroopers is what I've been painting, and they don't really need much as far as that's concerned. You know what I mean? Like, they don't wear capes or use shields too much, so it's not that big of a deal. But I know in a lot of 40K stuff, there's a lot of models that can gain things from doing things from putting them together in subassembly, but it does take more work to some degree, so I get that. Gaming Trolls says, if you want fiddly, try the Robotech models done by Palladium. Those are 1,000,000 pieces. Yeah, I remember seeing those. They gave away like sprues, like a single sprue with a couple models on it at Gen Con or Adepticon a couple years back, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's a lot of pieces. So yeah, but at least they were plastic. I mean, you got that going for you. I mean, really, Fire Warriors, Tau Fire Warriors are a surprising amount of pieces in a single model. Like, there's at least a dozen pieces, I think, in a Tau Fire Warrior for one guy, VJ Morph says, wow, that bat rep is finally coming out. It's true. It is finally coming out. Let's see here. The Dark Future video by Wargamer Girl is on the channel Media Glitch, who do the video game stuff in Albuquerque. That's right. She does some videos for a, like a, what do you call it? Like a cable access kind of channel in Albuquerque. And it's called Media Glitch. And so, yeah, that's right. That's where because she posted the video on Facebook, but it wasn't on her channel. It was on theirs. So Sebastian asks, speaking of other wargaming YouTubers, is Joey Berry still around? I remember really loving her videos. I mean, she's not really doing YouTube anymore, but she is around. And she's still doing gaming-related stuff. As it turns out, I think, and I got to be perfectly honest that I don't know this for sure, but I have a very strong suspicion that her YouTube channel and the popularity of it years ago, Joey Berry, is what got her the job at Creative Assembly. Creative Assembly is the company that makes the Total War video games, like Total War Japan and Total War this and Total War that. And I think they hired her on as a community manager to start because of her background in Warhammer Fantasy and the videos that she was making about Warhammer Fantasy. And then eventually they came out with Warhammer, or Total War Warhammer, and then she went from being just like a community manager who kind of like, was a moderator of the forums to the point now where she's, I don't know if she's a brand lead, or I don't know, she's something else. And I've seen her like basically emceeing like videos about their stuff, like at E3 or what, I don't know. She's doing well. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of that came from the fact that she had the YouTube channel. She was super sweet. I interviewed her at Adepticon 2011? No, 2013? 2014? Somewhere in there. And if you go back in the old-timey parts of the channel, you'll find me interviewing her. And she was super nice. But she's got a couple of kids now, And I don't know that she does as much in the way of wargaming anymore. I think it's mainly just, computer wargaming and that kind of stuff, and taking care of her kids and whatnot and everything. But yeah, she's still around, but she works for the company that makes the Total War series. She may have made a video a year or two ago, but I don't think that she's I don't think she's. There's one of the best videos that she ever did, in my opinion, was she was going through all the different types of lores, the magical lores in old Warhammer Fantasy, like the lore of steel, the lore of this, lore of that. She did the lore of blood, which is for the vampire counts and stuff like that. And just, if you get the chance, watch the lore of blood video that she did. I don't want to spoil it. It's hysterical, though. She's super funny. Paul Noxie says, Adam, you were playing Necrons in Miranda's video. I've seen some screen caps she sent over. Yeah, I remember I was playing Necrons. I don't remember the heck she was playing. She might have been playing my Primaris Black Templar folks. Maybe she was doing that. I think that might be the case. Steve Berkey says, hey, Adam, have you ever played Star Wars Miniatures by Wizards of the Coast, the game that first got me into skirmish games way back in the day? Oh, did I? Yes, I still have a duffel bag full of models in the basement. So back in the day, in the early 2000s, I think, or maybe it was late 2000s? I don't know. Anyway, Wizards of the Coast they had the license for Star Wars, and they made a pre-painted miniatures game, kind of like HeroClix, except that there was no clicking. It was just like little pre-painted sort of rubbery dudes, and you bought a box, and you didn't know what you were going to get in it. It was random pack, and then you built forces, and they would have like when they first started, it was like the original trilogy, like the episodes 4, 5, and 6 type models, and then they moved into Clone Wars, and then they moved into like expanded universe, and then they just started making crap up because they had to keep making new sets and they had to keep making new models, and people were buying them, so they're like, well, we keep making them. So then eventually they started running out of models, and they just started, I don't know, just random junk from like novels that were talked about once. They would make up a model for that. And so but yeah, we played. There was no game shop in town at the time when this was going on. We were playing at the comic shop, which one of the guys that worked at the comic shop was a huge Star Wars guy, so he was like, hey, boss, you should buy this stuff and get it in stock. And then we all just started buying it, and then we would play it at the comic shop like on like Thursday nights or something like that. And like every week, and played a ton of it. And I was, at that time when I was playing it, like I was super into Clone Wars stuff. Like those were the models that I generally collected. Like I collected a bunch of other stuff too, but like those are the guys I like to keep together. It was played on a grid. It didn't have any terrain to it. It was like kind of like HeroClix in that fashion, where you would just lay down this like sort of paper like color map, and then you would have like, oh, I can't go around this corner because there's a wall, but you didn't have actual physical terrain. But it was a fun game. It was a fun skirmish game. I really enjoyed it. And but there was also a lot of like, you'd pull a figure that you'd be like, well, I want this figure for my army, but I could also probably get $60 for him on eBay because he's real rare, like Boba Fett or some junk like that. And so, yeah, that part stuff I didn't like, honestly. Like that random pack stuff is why I've never really gotten into a lot of those types of games. But I did really enjoy the Star Wars miniatures game back in the day, yeah. And like I said, still have a big old duffel bag full of models in the basement. Mikey says, sorry, are we talking about Joey Berry? Yes. Oh yeah, she was and she's on Instagram. Yep. Yeah. But she's, like I said, she works for Creative Assembly now, the company that does the Total War games, if you're into those strategy type games. Emily says, Adam, I just looked up that book you mentioned, Locky, and I knew the author sounded familiar. He did Red Shirts. That was a hilariously fun book. Yeah, I enjoyed Red Shirts too. That was also quite good. Hey, there's Wargamer Girl. Black Templar, yes. My Black Templar Primaris Marines. And so, yeah, that I was just telling him that the Bat Rep will be out in 6 minutes, roughly, is what it's going to be at. What else have we got? Oppressive Colonialist says, I have fond memories of the Star Wars game. Yeah, that was a cool game. I did enjoy it. Huge Star Wars guy, Jabba. I mean, he wasn't that big. He was, he had a little friend that would laugh a lot, though. But, yeah, no. That was different altogether. Terrainaholic asks, is there a rulebook out there for the Star Wars miniatures game? We've been looking for it forever. Like the old pre-paints? I might have a PDF somewhere, but I don't know if there was a book. Like, I think if you could buy a starter box, and then it would come with some models and like a decent book, but otherwise it was kind of a PDF thing. I'll have to look. I might still have a PDF somewhere, like on my Google Drive or Dropbox or someplace weird like that. So yeah, definitely. Devin says it was based off the same game system as their D&D randomized pre-paints. Yeah, the D&D skirmish game too was also pretty popular. Those models, just like the Star Wars models, then kind of got a secondary market sort of thing going on, where it was, the eBay stuff, where, like people who were playing Dungeons and Dragons were like, I need a bunch of orcs, and they would just go on eBay and find people who had bought those random packs and gotten orcs, and then decided eventually they wanted to get rid of them, and then they'd sell. If you were smart, instead of just saying, I'm going to sell a whole bunch of random crap, you'd be like, I'm going to sell skeletons, I'm going to sell orcs, I'm going to sell kobolds. I've been saying for years that the companies that make those things, like, they should be selling them in packs where I can, like, if I'm a DM and I just need skeletons, I need painted skeletons, and I need a bunch of them, just sell me a box of skeletons. Don't make me have to go through the random packs. I know Pathfinder's doing that a little bit, but I think that there's money being left on the table by companies who can make these models, these pre-paints, who aren't just making box of orcs, box of goblins, you know what I mean? Because there are so many GMs out there that'd be like, thank God I don't have to buy and paint a whole bunch of goblins, I'll just buy them, and they're already painted. And then the players that are running through this particular campaign each have their little painted miniature of their person, but I can just go and go, boom, skeletons, a whole bunch of them, and that's just great. But the way it worked was, you used to buy these random pack boxes of D&D miniatures, and you'd be like, oh good, I got another Mind Flayer. They're supposed to be ultra rare, but I got another one, but can I find 3 orcs to rub together? No, as it turns out, not. Even though they're supposed to be commons. That kind of stuff, I think. I wish it was a little bit easier to find, frankly. I know that Reaper for a while was doing painted models before they were doing bones. They did have, like, you could buy like 3 painted skeletons and that kind of stuff. But I would have liked to have seen more than 3. You know what I mean? Like a bigger... some people, I'm sure, would have been absolutely happy to pay $60 to get 20 painted skeletons. You know, even if they weren't painted that well, it's fine. But yeah. T-Man 2022 says, great meeting you at Gen Con. I was the guy with the Bloodborne mini that I painted. Yeah, how you doing? That was a good-looking model. I'm glad that you said you won a bronze, I think, in the contest, and that's very cool, the miniature contest. As far as miniature contest at Gen Con, our boy Vince Venturella, also of YouTube fame, he, I think, took best of show and a whole bunch of other models home from the big competition at Gen Con, so he did super, super well. But yeah, no, it was good to meet you. Tyler, I believe. Total War Warhammer 1 and 2 were the 2 best Total Wars I ever played. I know that many people put Shogun in the first place, but I'm a really big Warhammer fantasy lover. Yeah, those were great games. Luis said, did you get to check out Riot Quest by Privateer Press at Gen Con? Like I said earlier, I walked by and I watched them play a little bit, and I saw some of the models, but I did not get a demo of it myself. Someone said that there's a video on the Privateer Press YouTube channel that you can kind of check out, and I want to watch that. So, let's see here. The Animaster says, I can't believe I'm getting excited for something more than just this Sunday live stream. Going to look up Wargamer Girl's channel right after this. Yeah, no, it's a good idea, and we'll see how the battle report goes. So yeah, your shameless plug worked, Adam. Well, that's what I'm here for. What else have we got here? Devin Jones says, that being said, they should, referring to why they randomize stuff, that they should sell packs for encounters. I don't get why that's not a thing. Yeah, same here. You know what I mean? Like, with the popularity of 5th edition and Pathfinder, like 2.0, I think, has just been announced or come out, or I'm not sure. Yeah, just totally, there should be people just making painted skeletons. Boom, put them out there. Rotten Lead, or Rotten Lead, I suppose. Are Reaper Bones changing color? I heard they were not going to be white next time around. I've been seeing Reaper Bones in, like, they're calling them Reaper Black, even though they are actually dark gray. Maybe Reaper Dark Ray didn't sound good. They are, I think, a slightly harder plastic too. They're not nearly as bendy. So yeah, and someone else, Torch, says that they've started using better plastic, so that's good too. Uncle Adam, one question. Did you play Gen Con, at Gen Con, Blood and Plunder, this pirate game from Firelock Games? What do you think about on-land fighting mechanics? I did not play it, so I haven't tried that out. What else? Was the Pacific Rim game at Gen Con? I didn't see it. No, I don't think it was. Pathfinder 2 was released at Gen Con, says Devin. Cool. So, anyway, it's 11 o'clock, so if you're interested and you want to see a Kill Team Battle Report, you should head over to Wargamer Girl's channel on YouTube and see her and I play back in October of last year. That's being released like now. And so, yeah, to check that out if you're in the mood, and or check it out later, whatever, if you don't have time. I'll have to check it out later because I got to go to lunch at in-laws. But I want to thank everybody for coming to the show today, and I hope I was able to show you some fun stuff from Gen Con, show you my my new fez, and other things, RPGs, dewback, that kind of stuff. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. I just was looking at the calendar before the show started, and Nova, which is the next convention I'm going to be at the end of the month, is going to be between current every other Sunday shows, so I'm not gonna have to change the schedule for Nova, which is also awesome. So basically, I'll have a convention, I'll have a show, then go to Nova, and then the next week I'll have another show, and we won't have to mess with the schedule, and that'll be great. We'll see how things go until what's my next thing after that? Well, maybe mid-October, definitely late October. I mean, I know I've got a show in late October. I'm going to Dragon Con, or not Dragon Con, Dragon Fall, which I was talking about earlier in the show, and also then I'm maybe going to be doing something fun in the middle of October. We will see. But anyway, again, thanks everybody for coming to the show, and head over to Wargamer Girl and see me. I don't remember if I won or lost that game. When you get old, your memory just goes to, but it was a fun time, even though it got darker and darker and darker as we were filming because the sun was going down and there was a lot of windows. But check it out, and I'm looking forward to checking it out myself. So we'll see you in 2 weeks at the Every Other Sunday show. Thanks for watching.